Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk about the nodal axis being involved with the ascendant and the descendant. And by involved I mean either conjunct or squaring. Now, depending on what chart system, what house creation system that you use, if you use like Placidus or Porphyry or whatever, the cusp of the first house will be the ascendant, and the seventh house cusp will be the descendant. If you use whole signs, the first house will have the ascendant somewhere in it, the seventh house will have the descendant somewhere in it, but it isn't necessarily going to be the cusp. But that's where it will fall. It'll fall somewhere in the first or seventh houses. So, and just as a disclaimer, this is not meant to be taken and run with as absolute truth or anything like that. These are just some ideas to get your mind going as you're chart weaving, while you're chart weaving, whatever. Just some things to consider. You might find that they fit. You might find that some of them fit. You might find that none of them fit. Because each chart is so individual and so personalized. But these are ways that my mind goes when I see this kind of stuff. Where it'll drift first. That doesn't mean it stays there, but where it will drift first. So if you see the south node conjunct the ascendant, you might be looking at somebody who, from a previous lifetime lens, or just what they come into this world comfortable with. Comfortable functioning. Comfortable isn't always comfortable, but it's known to them. They might be more comfortable reacting from their knee-jerk reactions. They might be more comfortable with their sense of self, with how they naturally present themselves to the world. They might be more comfortable out in the open, perhaps. Now, if the south node is conjunct the ascendant from the 12th house, if you're using Placidus or Porphyry or whatever, or above the ascendant, that might not, the person, it might be comfortable for them, but they might not always realize it. It might not be as realized to them. If it's slightly below the, if the south node is slightly below the ascendant, it might be more realized to them. There might have been more of a focus on themselves, on their own personal attitudes to things. Perhaps their attitude molded the world around them in some way. All of those kinds of things come to mind when I see the ascendant conjunct the south node. Now, the descendant conjunct the north node. This person probably wanted to grow into understanding one-on-one relationships better in some way. Maybe they wanted to understand what they attract into their lives better. The big one that I see with the descendant, because, you know, the ascendant is where the chart rises, so the descendant is a shadow. So perhaps this person wanted to do some shadow work this time around. That seems very possible too. There was something that they needed to want to grow into embracing about the shadow part of them. That seems very likely. Now, if you have the south node conjunct the descendant, perhaps you're looking at somebody who is too focused on what they attract, too focused on one-on-one relationships from a previous lifetime lens, where they just come into this world more comfortable in these areas. Perhaps they lived too much in the shadow. Perhaps they're too comfortable there. Perhaps it's not serving them to do nothing but like shadow work constantly. You know what I mean? Not that shadow work is ever necessarily bad, but everything in balance, right? You know, too much of that could keep you stuck. Maybe not living out in the open as much. With the north node conjunct the ascendant, the person wanted to grow into the way that they present themselves to the world naturally, grow into their own attitudes, to understanding them, their natural knee-jerk reactions. All of those sorts of things, all of those sorts of ascendant things, the person wanted to grow into this time around. Now, I also want to say, sometimes I'll see people say that, you know, oh, my south node is conjunct the descendant, my north node is conjunct the ascendant. Does that mean that I'm not supposed to have relationships this time around and only focus on myself? And no, that's not true. You can absolutely have relationships in this lifetime. They just might have to be a little different than perhaps what you're used to. There might be something is needed to change there. And perhaps it is knowing more about yourself and the way that you present yourself and your attitude and all of those sorts of things that help you to find a relationship that actually does work for you, maybe. Same thing with like people that have the ascendant conjunct the south node and the north node conjunct the descendant. Oh, am I not supposed to give a shit about myself in this lifetime and just focus on other people? No, that's not true. No, not at all. Perhaps you're supposed to, perhaps, depending on the whole chart, perhaps there is supposed to be more of a focus on the concept of one-on-one relationships. Perhaps there is. Perhaps you're supposed to go deeper in this lifetime though too. Go more into the shadow parts of yourself. That doesn't mean that you don't live out loud kind of thing. It doesn't mean that, or live out in the open, but perhaps you are supposed to, go towards more depth, and that does bring you even more knowledge about yourself and the way that you react to the world. And it also helps you move towards better one-on-one relationships. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're never supposed to focus on yourself or not supposed to care about yourself. Just want to make that clear. Now, if you see the north and south nodes squaring the ascendant and the descendant, that makes the ascendant and the descendant skip steps, which means that they are something that you used, abused, misused, ignored, or a myriad of other things from a previous lifetime lens. Or you just come into this world functioning that way, if you don't like the past life thing. Something has gone amiss here with your sense of self, with your concept of the other, concept of the shadow. Something has gone amiss. Now, the rest of the chart will better give you an idea of what that is. If you see the ascendant and the descendant squaring the nodes, I would definitely look at the planetary rulers of the ascendant and descendant. Let's say you've got your ascendant in Libra and your descendant in Aries. You would need to be looking at Venus and Mars. I would look at that. Honestly, with the conjunctions as well, I would also look at the planetary rulership of the ascendant and the descendant too. See what they're doing, aspects they're making in the chart, all of that kind of stuff. To give you a better idea of what, or of how something might have gone amiss, what areas of life it might have gone amiss in. I would definitely take those into consideration. Definitely. I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb too, along with looking at the planetary rulerships of the north and south nodes too. Because sometimes you might have a situation where you have like the ascendant in one sign and the south node is in the other. They're still conjunct. I would still count that as a conjunction. Some people wouldn't, I do. If it's within 5 degrees applying or separating. So you might actually be looking at two planetary rulerships here. Let's say you've got the ascendant in let's say you've got the ascendant in Libra, and let's say the south node is at, let's say you've got the ascendant at 3 degrees Libra, the south node is at 28 Virgo. So they're conjunct. They're within that 5 degree applying separating that I'm talking about. You can use whatever orb you want, but they would be considered conjunct one another. But you'd be looking at two different rulerships, right? Planetary ruler of the ascendant would be Venus, and the planetary ruler of the south node would be Mercury. So sometimes they are different that way, and I would look, and if that happens to be the case, I would look at the planetary rulers of both. But yeah, so I'm going to get going. I think that's pretty good for now. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Apaterno Astrology on Instagram. If you want to follow us on YouTube or subscribe or whatever the fuck, you can search for us at Let's Fuck With Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you do the Reddit thing, you can find us on the subreddit Let's Fuck With Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, you can go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.